In Japanese poetry, the image of the wild goose, or kari, was the most important autumn bird. The Manyoshu, the oldest collection of Japanese poetry, has 67 poems on the goose. While it was, by the end of the medieval period, considered one of the three best birds for hunting, Japan's wild goose was also an essential image for autumnal poetry and was associated with loneliness, arrival in autumn, return in spring, and the evening moon, as Haruo Shirani details in his Japan and the Culture of the Four Seasons. There are two categories of birds in Japanese poetry: commoner and classical birds. Commoner birds are birds such as the sparrow or the chicken. Classical birds include the wild duck or the swan. The key difference between these two groups is their migratory status. Commoner birds tended to be birds that stayed in one place, i.e., the provinces, whereas classical birds were migratory and were seen and heard both by those in the country and in the capital. The goose, however, is in the middle of these two categories. Though often classified as a classical bird, it has both a poetic/classical name, kari, and a vernacular name, gan. In this poem from the Manyoshu, the arrival of the geese brings with it autumn. Since the geese have so coldly cried, riding brush trailed upon the hill, the arrowroot leaves have gained autumn shades. Hearing the call of the geese and seeing them fly in formation above the trees was the signal that autumn had begun. For farmers in the fields, hearing and seeing geese would have been a sign that it was time to wrap up the harvest season, to stock up and settle in for the hard winter ahead. For the capital's aristocrats, the goose call was merely the precursor to all the pretty autumn leaves. The autumn moon is a symbol of loneliness, and, as mentioned before, geese are as well. The image of being alone on a dark night with nothing but the moon and the far-off call of the geese is a frequently used image to evoke this feeling. As per the poet Shinkei, who worked in the 15th century, "With whom can I share the feelings wrought in my heart by the autumn sky? In the reeds, the evening wind, in the clouds, wild geese calling." The narrator here is implying that the only ones who can share their feelings are the geese and the evening wind. They are the only ones who can appreciate the beauty and loneliness caused upon viewing the autumn sky. Or here, in this poem from the Shinko Kenshu, written by Murasaki Shikibu, the author of the Tale of Genji, about leaving a loved one. "To the north I go, on goose wings. Send me word. Address above the snow, writing never ending." Here we see also the use of the goose as messenger or, depending on how you read it, the identification of the narrator with the annually migrating goose, leaving to loneliness only to return again in the rebirth in the greenness of spring. The use of the image of the goose in Japanese poetry doesn't really shift at all across time. The association with loneliness and, of course, with autumn is maintained. Instead, it's the form of the poetry that changes. The first poem I read, from the Manyoshu, which was completed between 770 and 785, was a tanka, or short poem. The second poem was a verse from a renga, or linked verse, from the 1400s. The third poem was written in the 11th century and is a waka poem. This last poem is a haiku, written by Matsuo Basho in 1693. 20th of 10th month, an impromptu verse at Fukagawa. The pathos of the bird seller's geese, Ebisu Festival. Ebisuko, or the Ebisu Festival, takes place from November 18th to November 20th every year. It's a celebration of the Kami Ebisu and marks the closing of autumn and the start of winter. The pathos of the bird seller's geese, trapped and unable to go south to warmer climes, matches the pathos of the narrator as they see the world turning to winter. In summary, geese are the key avian image of autumn in traditional Japanese poetry. They are used to evoke loneliness, feelings of parting, and the onset of fall. This image also connects us to the Japanese of the past. We can still, today, as the weather grows cold and the leaves turn red, hear the call of the wild geese as they journey away.